I'm not divulging anything that I'm not happy for you guys to write down. This is all pretty much in the public arena. So from our people's perspective, from April 20, we grounded all of our flying across Europe. All of our flying crew were grounded. Around 75% of our office and operational colleagues were furloughed, or we used the Kurzarbeit scheme in Germany or other various similar schemes across Europe. And the senior leadership took a temporary 30% pay cut for a number of months. We then had a little bit of a glimmer of hope, which I think was probably more the train coming down the tunnel than the light at the end of the tunnel. But we did start to operate a little bit sort of in September and October last year, and we had a minimal flying programme. But really still around 70% of our crew were furloughed, have been furloughed since October. We've seen a cautious and gradual increase in working hours in the office teams, and really only resourcing the operationally and safety critical activities. Our finances have taken an absolute bashing. Our revenue last year was down 85%, and we made a €3 billion loss. In half one this year, our revenue is down 90%, and we've made a 1.3 billion loss, and we've done a fair amount of work. And actually, this is the point: we have taken a hit, but there's masses of market confidence about TUI, and we've secured a range of different liquidity options, including government-backed loans and guarantees, and more recently an equity capital raise and a convertible bond, which really shows that the city and the market is confident that we will weather this, however challenging it might feel at the moment. From a business perspective, we're really working on getting our way through this, but maintaining our orientation on what the future is going to look like. So we've reduced our cash fixed costs each month by about 70%. And then we're targeting, and this is aviation specific, so just the airlines piece. We run 5 airlines across Europe. We've got about £3 billion year-on-year efficiencies that we're looking to make by the end of financial year 23, which it doesn't seem that far off now. We've got an asset right strategy for hotels, aircraft, cruises. We own quite a lot of our own hotels. We own a lot of our own aircraft. We've got cruise ships. Actually, we're looking at a different strategy for those. Clearly, along with everybody else, an accelerated digital strategy, thinking more about what we can do in the technology world and in the ether, the technology ether, rather than fairly cumbersome manual and people processes. And then looking to refinance the government facilities with alternatives that remove us from those government-backed loans. We're very much anticipating some money coming into the business over the course of summer 21. The scale of that really will be dictated by the extent to which each of our European markets begins to open up. And from our customers, for a vast majority of our customers, they had no overseas holidays in 2020. Everybody was scrambling to get down to Cornwall last year. They've got across Europe a whole variety of different vaccination schemes, testing, quarantine schemes. We have the joys and the delights in the UK of the red, amber, green regime. And by the way, if anybody can really tell me what it means, then please could you let us know, because we're really, really keen to get the right guidance and advice on how to make that work best for our customers. And then if they can navigate that and book with us and know that they're going to travel, massive changes in the travel experience at the airport and on board. And really, from our perspective, really, we're working to understand if we should be planning, or we are planning, for pent-up demand, or if really what we'll see is ultra caution in 2021. And depending on who you speak to, it's a little bit of both. So it gives a little bit, I hope, context of where we are at the moment. So the experience that our people have had, and I'll look at TUI Airways, which is our UK airline, because I think that's probably the most translatable, the most transferable kind of discussion topic that we can have here today. Not everybody in TUI Airways has had the same experience over the last 15 months. And I've really just kind of categorised our people in the airline. Our strategic leaders have been working every hour that God sends to secure the future of our company. real focus on safety and regulatory compliance in a non-operational environment, which is really quite unusual, and it means that our regulators are sometimes also struggling to understand what their expectations are, because they're used to thinking about safety and regulations in an environment where the planes are all moving and our people are all flying. Actually, we've had to deal with some real differences there. Implementing really painful cost-saving measures, which as leaders we found really tough. Engaging our teams, keeping those connections. And remember, we're used to dealing with teams who live across the UK who aren't always visible to us in head office, but actually this has really challenged us to think differently about how we engage with them. And then, of course, managing the highs of what was a restart at the end of last year and the lows of regrounding in the period before Christmas. Our flying and our airport teams, they are remote from head office. They were 100% on furlough from April 2020. We sent everybody home. Only a small proportion of them flew in summer 20. We've kept our training and recency events. Our pilots and our cabin crew have to continue to operate as pilots and cabin crew to keep their license. So we've reduced those events and ensured that we've kept them operating from time to time, but clearly considerably less than normal. And around 60% of our crew may not have actually worked on a commercial flight since the beginning of April. For some, we're very much anticipating the return for flying, and many have started flying this week, which has just been fantastic. But around 30% of our crew actually have no return date for 2021 rather, because of our expectation of what the operation may look like over this summer. Particularly then, if we then look at our head office teams, HR, finance, IT and engineering, and I've specified those because they've had to play a particular role within this. Part furlough in April mostly, but most had returned by about June 20. Massive pressure to introduce new processes and critical cost saving measures, and quite frankly those communities have been working their tails off. And then the rest of head office, a mixture of furlough, part furlough, working, all sorts of different teams, all sorts of different individuals on different arrangements, and monthly reviews of the resource required. Teams really split. Every month we're looking at different individuals, some people on different percentages of furlough, some people on furlough completely. And no guarantee from a team perspective of whether just because you've been unfurloughed this month doesn't mean you won't be refurloughed next. Really careful management of activities and also experiencing those highs of restart and the lows of regrounding. And I dug this out because I spotted this in The Guardian yesterday. There you go, that tells you everything you need to know about me. I spotted this in The Guardian yesterday, and this was a discussion about home working. And I think I've just popped this in. I know this is nothing to do with the furlough arrangement, but I think we often talk about the situation, the circumstance we've experienced over the last 15 months with respect to sitting in these boxes and looking at a screen. But actually, for a significant proportion of the workforce, many have never, ever actually worked from home. And a significant proportion of the workforce have actually been physically attending work and dealing with all of those COVID protocols that need to be put into the office environment. So when we talk about home working, actually, I do think it's also really important that we're only talking about a proportion, maybe a majority, but a proportion of our workforce. There's a significant proportion of our workforce who have never worked from home and will never have the chance to work from home. They still have to physically attend to their workplace. So if I then think about what it is that we're now looking at and what we've put in place to help support people who are coming back into the workplace, I'm going to divide this, and these are my last two slides, into practical considerations, the things that we have been doing, and then more emotional considerations, the things that we are now grappling with and thinking about how we can help to support people. So from a practical perspective, depends on the category of workforce that you're in, but for everybody we've put in place a reboarding process with content and advice for managers that very much touch upon a lot of the topics that Michaela has talked about earlier on today, with that same kind of mentality around returning from maternity. Wayfinding videos for our crew, because our crew, they may very well have worked in those airports before, but actually the airports don't look and feel the same. The route that they go to, the car park that they go to, the place that they have to go through security, it's all different and it's all changed for them. So wayfinding videos for them. information about our office and our airport facilities. So if somebody goes to one of our offices, they know what's the protocol there, what are the facilities available, do you have to take your own lunch, can you expect to be fed, what are the arrangements that exist in those offices. For our office colleagues, for our non-operational colleagues, we are looking at new ways of working and principles of how we operate in a hybrid world, and a lot more choice for individuals about whether they work in the office or whether they work from elsewhere and how often they go into the office. And we're just starting in on that journey now, because we're still not back in the offices, but we're just starting that conversation with our teams now. And then for non-operational colleagues, we've run a colleague survey to find out how many office days people may want to work and how many they want to work from home or from elsewhere, what their concerns are about return, and then really putting in place some of those new policies. Those people who are going to go permanent home working, the policy that sits around that, which Caroline will remember fondly from her time over the course of last summer, and also hybrid working policies, so that we can help to construct, create a bit of structure around those people who are going to move into not going into the office on a regular basis. And then new technology planned. And genuinely, I'm not gonna lie, we're not right top of the pops when it comes to technology. We're not there with the all singing, all dancing stuff, but clearly if you're a permanent home worker, we do need to think much more carefully about the technology people had. Now, they're the things that pretty much, I think, if you read most of the articles that are pumping out, that everybody gets pushed into their email box on a regular basis, we're probably ticking most of the boxes that we know that we should be doing with respect to what the new normal is going to look like. But really, I think, and I hope that today the conversation that we can have, that I can scribble down as much advice and guidance that you've got, these are the topics that really we're really starting to face into. And the basic principle that I would say here is that our returning communities do not all feel the same. Everybody's experience is very different. Everybody's coming at this from a very different perspective. And I'm really picking out here maybe 5 categories, 5 factors that are impacting on people. So let's assume that these statements in blue are what we're thinking. We think we probably know how our people feel, but really, do we? How do people feel about being furloughed or working? One of the things that I think has been one of the most significant learns for us through this is that the fact of somebody being furloughed or the fact of somebody working does not dictate whether they feel positively or negatively about the experience they've had in the last 15 months. We've got loads of people who've loved being furloughed, loads of people who've hated it, loads of people who've loved coming to work, loads of people who've hated it, and everything in between. Whether people feel secure in their role or not, that's not clear. And clearly, when you're working for an organisation like us that has really been through the mill over the last 15 months, do people know and feel, are they confident that the organisation is going to remain the same and their job will be retained? And what was their COVID-19 experience outside work? Everybody's had a different experience. Everybody's been touched by this differently. Everybody's home life has changed. Some people have got dogs, new dogs. How are they going to feel about leaving them at home and coming into the office? That statement of returning to work is like returning from maternity. I think Michaela's right, but actually she's also hit upon a really important point here, which is it is a bit like maternity, but it's like everybody was on maternity all at the same time. So does anybody know what the new work priorities are? Does anybody really know the practical things? Can anybody remember what the code was to get in the door? What's changed? That experience in the airports for our crew has been really important, and the teams going in early to understand what does that airport experience look like, because it isn't like that first day back from maternity where you just follow everybody else because no one else knows which way they're going either. Our leaders should be supporting our returning teams, but also, do we know how our leaders feel about their own COVID-19 experience? Have they been through the mill? Has this been challenging for them? And did they maintain trust with their teams through this period? And if they didn't, what can we do to really help make up for where that dialogue and that transparency maybe didn't exist? We assume that colleagues are already working effectively. I don't know about you, but actually I think the last 2 months of working on Zoom has probably been the hardest. That disconnect, that lack of connection with people, that those water cooler moments, those chance discussions, those great bits of work that come about as a result of you bumping into somebody at work and realizing that something needs fixing. All of those things have gone, and our ability to make impact in the workplace, we just can't always tell whether we're making the impact we want when we're doing it on Zoom. I mean, I don't know about you, but I've clicked something that means I can't see anybody's face. So at the moment, I'm just talking at a screen with my slide on it. I'm hoping you can still all hear me, but I haven't got a clue. So I don't know if I'm making impact or not. And sometimes this feels the same. I've been looking at a picture of myself on a screen for a long time, and it's very odd. How effective do we feel, and do we have those moments of contact? And then we assume that everybody is desperate to get back to work. And we don't really know. We should know. We need to find out, how has their new home routine changed? How much have people shifted their life and their home life around with their family? You know, do they really enjoy dropping the kids off at work in the morning, at school rather, in the morning? And do they really enjoy picking them up at night? And do they like to take the dog out for a walk at lunchtime? Some people may very well have enjoyed their furlough job that they took on, delivering with Asda or Ocado, working in. We've got loads of, actually, I don't know how some of the B&M stores are going to cope without our cabin crew, because we've had masses of cabin crew working for B&M in some of our bases. Maybe they enjoyed their furlough job better than this one. And how are we going to have to face into that? And how safe, physically safe and emotionally safe, do colleagues feel at work? So that's a lot of questions. That's not a lot of answers. And I really hope you hadn't expected that I'd be able to give you anything like an answer to some of the things we're doing. But I guess these are the things that we're facing into.
As I'm kind of asking Kirsty these questions, and equally, if you do have another question, then feel free to drop it in. Then I guess I'll ask. One of the ones that Paul asked at the start, Kirsty, was on how TUI have approached the return to work staff in terms of like the change of routine, motivation, and priorities for people. So as that's shifted, and you're bringing people back in, how are you addressing that this may have shifted in terms of people's priorities or working?
Yeah, it's. I think this has hit upon one of the massive problems that we've had, and I think this is more of a head office rather than our operational teams, because for our operational teams, you fly the aircraft, the priorities are broadly the same. But one of the biggest issues that we faced, and we didn't get it right in the early part of the summer, as people came off furlough and came back into the team, what we didn't appreciate was the sheer scale of decisions, activity and reprioritization that they had missed. And we were all in our hamster wheel, absolutely spinning. And, you know, it might have been 2 months out, 3 months out, for some people 12 months out. In that summer period when we were right in the thick of it, we did not think carefully enough about bringing somebody back in and spending time with them, explaining all that stuff that you used to do. We ain't doing any of that anymore. It doesn't mean we don't value you. We just want you to work on these things.
There's a couple on that we definitely had some conversations around it, and I'll try and sort of string them in a coherent order based on, you know, what we're covering. I think there's a lot of messaging that's been asked or that's been talked around. One of them I think stuck out. There's been a lot of difficult messages for people. We're on, you know, either in or out of furlough, people carrying stress, budgets from everybody I think have been under pressure. I'm not sure anyone has got through this period without the ability to make a tough decision. One of them was, how did you communicate those difficult ones? What was the form of communication, and have you evolved how you're communicating to personnel as I guess a result of that live feedback? It's probably been more difficult messaging than the normal period. So how were you communicating them, and has your kind of method of communication changed as a result of what you've learned?
Yeah. I think, and I give full credit to our managing director of TUI Airways, Dawn Wilson, for this. We very, very quickly got ourselves into a fairly quick routine of using the technology and actually using it more effectively than we'd been able to engage with our people in it, like prior to the to COVID, because what we used to do was traipse around 18 different airports in the UK and 3 in the Nordics and try and meet as many people as possible who were all just about to go on a flight or just came back off a flight and wanted to go home. Actually, what we did was we meet with about every 2 months. We run board sessions where we meet with our crew, and board sessions where we meet with our back office and then our leaders, and just keeping that flow of information, even when we've not got anything significant to talk about. One, our financial circumstances, two, the things that we're focusing on the most, three, what's going on in our competitors' market, and four, when we have got a tough message to deliver, that's when we start to point towards where that tough message may need to be delivered. Are we going to make redundancies? Are we going to have to do some restructuring? So that what we don't have is any surprises, you know, to a certain extent, but we're at least giving people an indication of what's to come. And it feels like we've become, I mean, I think we were pretty transparent before, but it feels like we've become much more transparent. And Al, you're nodding. I think particularly our crew have really appreciated those opportunities where we've just opened up. And some of those we've been really honest about how we feel as well. About how it's not working, about how we're frustrated with what's going on, and actually that little bit of normality and people seeing us in our home environment with our kids coming in and cat bottoms and all of that has also helped.
Okay, fascinating one that comes out. So from a sort of senior leader's perspective, there's been a lot of we've all spent a lot of time trying to find out ways how we integrate, look after, care for other people, and that, you know, that translation, who will watch the watchers, who will guard the guards. I think, how are you looking after yourself? How are you at a time when I think, you know, quite simply, a lot of people have shouldered a lot of shit, and it's been difficult, and you're always, you know, have to be, he was constantly spending time looking out for other people. So what are you doing to look after yourself?
Well, actually, I think that question has come at a really relevant time, because I think in the last 8 weeks, I think if I talk to a number of my colleagues around the board table, but and also in similar HR roles across the organisation, I think this is the hardest time that we have experienced in these last 8 weeks. Last summer, we moaned a lot about how hard it was, but boy was the adrenaline pumping, and boy did we have a sense of purpose. And boy, looking back on it, did we really thrive in that environment? Loads of stuff going on, everything being thrown at us. We seemed to make decisions in a different way. We had a sense of purpose. It worked really, really well. And then we had that build up to Christmas, and then the January blues, and then the potential of what could be. And I think after Easter, I think since Easter, this has been the hardest for us. Now, I don't know if that's specific to us, or if that's industry wide in the airline industry, travel industry, or actually that's actually just what we're feeling across the country. And it's almost as though this is the point at which we thought we'd be seeing our way out of this, and we just can't quite get there. And personally, I think this has probably been the hardest time for me personally. I found it incredibly, and Al will tell you, I'm not an emotional person. I don't share a lot about myself. I'm a tough old bird, but this has been really, really hard. So what have I been doing? Well, I've been doing all the things that I didn't do last summer, and I've been doing all the things that I actually forgot to do after Christmas, because I was just so, yeah, it was just so, after Christmas, come on, let's get going. I have been doing all the things that everyone tells you about. I've been doing a little bit more exercise. I've been eating just a little bit more. But you know what? The thing that's probably the most important thing is that I'm creating a little bit more time and space for moments of connection with people just beyond the 3 people who I love very dearly, but I've spent more time with over the last 15 months than I had ever expected I would do. And I love my little boys, and my wife is absolutely great, and she's incredibly supportive. But actually getting out of the house and spending time with other people, and some of it together with other people, re-socializing. I don't know how to go in. I said to Mikala, I'm going to the pub tonight. I genuinely don't know what to do. I don't know what to wear. I don't know how I'm going to get in. I'm hoping someone booked something. I don't know how to order a drink anymore. You know, you just don't know. So for me, it's just returning a little bit of the normality, and also being kind to myself, being okay about the fact that I feel pretty crappy sometimes, and that I haven't felt like that in the last 12 months. And actually, there's a lot of people I'm talking to, and we're all doing the same thing. In fact, we're all going out for a drink exactly because of that tonight, because we all think that's what we need, just that little bit of looking after ourselves just a little bit.